What is up, everyone? I am finally back from the Pokemon World Championships this year in Yokohama, Japan. Sorry for the lack of content, but today we're going to talk about the deck that I played to a middling finish, actually a disappointing finish at the World Championships, why I chose the deck that I chose, what kind of goes into the World Championships, and all of that. So I ended up playing Gardevoir for the World Championships, a deck that has been somewhat of a comfort deck for me for the last little bit, playing it at both EUIC and NAIC and having pretty successful results across the board. And probably one of my favorite decks in this format. Now let's talk about the list first and foremost before I jump into the decision making and how I came to Gardevoir as my final deck. The deck is pretty similar to what I've been playing all season, especially at NAIC. Biggest changes being adding Mirage Step Kirlia into the equation. The logic behind Mirage Step Kirlia is there are games against Arceus Duraludon or Arceus Umbreon, whatever, as well as Lost Box or Mew. Like a lot of these really aggressive decks, you just lose the game sometimes if you prize 2 Ralts, and I didn't want that to be a potential option against a deck like Mew, which the matchup is so, I think, very favorable for Gardevoir, or a deck like Arctura, where like I think the matchup is also very favorable if you can also just set up and play the game. So having that turn to go ahead and Mirage Step sometimes can just win you the game by itself. The rest of the Pokemon core is pretty much identical to what I've been playing throughout the season. One research was cut from my NAIC list to make room for a Forest Sealstone. Now, the Forest Sealstone was a card that obviously does not get as much value because there's no Luminion, but only a single copy of Zacian V in the deck. But that one copy of Zacian V plus Forest Sealstone can provide a lot of checkmate scenarios against decks like Mew, and as well as Lost Tina. Lost Tina not being a deck that typically plays Vacuum, so being able to just put the Zacian Sealstone down as well as having an attacker in the active can sometimes just seal up the game against something like a Path Roxanne or a Path Iono, stuff like that. So the deck is not actually very different from what I've been playing pretty much throughout the season. It's pretty much just 2 cards off of what I played at NAIC, and it's still very, very good. And the testing, it was proving to be pretty consistent and working pretty well. Now the stadium counts I came down to deciding on keeping Sinnoh going into day 2 because I saw a lot of Lugia in day 1. So okay, now that we've gone through the deck list, here's my 60 cards that I played. Let's talk about how I came to the conclusion of playing Gardevoir. So obviously you guys know Gardevoir is my comfort pick, and heading into this Worlds I tested a lot. The deck that I was testing more than anything else was Chien-Pao Baxcalibur, because I felt like Chien-Pao had a very high power ceiling, and that could deal with any deck. But the closer we got to the event, the less confident I felt in its matchup against Lost Tina. And Lost Tina I felt like was going to be a very, very big threat and a problem to deal with. Like Lost Tina was going to be one of the decks to beat for me. And so in the last couple of days of testing, it was just pretty much losing to everything, including Lost Box pretty convincingly. I think I went 7-1 in games as Lost Box against Lost Tina, and that really just scared me, I guess. And then our friends went into day 1 to compete, and we had a pretty wide slew of people. We had a couple on Mew, we had a couple on Gardevoir, a couple on Lugia, and a couple on Tina. And so our Tina player, Isaiah, made it through, and both our Mew players made it through, but both Guardy players and both Lugia players did not make it. So Lugia, which was a consideration for me up till that point, just because I was thinking maybe Lugia is being disrespected, maybe Lugia has a chance, was out the window because Lugia just kind of sucks as a deck, in my opinion. And as soon as Xander made it through at 6-0, Xander came back to the room, and Xander and I were talking, and Mew became my only other consideration besides Gardevoir. Chien-Pao was not testing well on Friday when I had the whole day to myself to test, and it was really just scaring me is probably the best term. Like I got into my own head. And then Justin came back after going for 1-3, losing his win-and-end to move on. And I asked Justin, hey, like what happened? What could have been changed? He said, if I had played a little bit of my ties better, I would have won both of those a little bit faster. And I think there was a gentleman's that was not upheld in one of his rounds as well that eliminated his opponent, but kept Justin in the tournament due to an up pair from his opponent. So gentleman's that really didn't make any sense from his opponent not to uphold. But all that being said, I talked to him and I said, would you change anything about the Gardevoir list? And he said, no, I think that's the best deck in the format. I think it's the best deck to win games. It's the most confident deck. And I said, sure, I agree with it. And I sleeved up Gardevoir with that vote of confidence, and I went to bed. A list that I have done well with, a list that has proven to be good, and a deck that we saw also take second and was 30 seconds away from being a world champion. Now, why did my tournament run end so abruptly? Let's jump into it. Round 1, I go up against Juan, who did make it through day 1, playing Gardevoir as well. He came through to 6-0 record, so I did know that he was playing Gardevoir, and we sat down and started our game. Game 1, Juan wins the flip, sets up perfectly, I lose. Like, it's just a back and forth trade of Cresselia Snipe, eventually get the boss play onto the Gardevoir EX. We both Ionoing each other, hoping that one person misses. But when setups happen, it's really difficult to miss from that point. Game 2, I set up perfectly, and I take the first prize with probably like 20 minutes left on the clock. I take a second prize with maybe like 15 minutes left on the clock. I'm pretty confident we're going to go ahead and tie. Juan looks at the clock and immediately concedes the game, giving us about 12 minutes for the final game. The third game, unfortunately, Juan gets off to a blistering start with the turn 2 Candy Guardy, and I actually missed the turn 2 Candy Guardy in response, and my start is very middling, and I can't actually do much. So I'm kind of just keeping in the game as much as I can. But there comes a point where Juan's board is overwhelmed, and once I've missed the turn 2 attack to match his turn 2 attack, the game is effectively already over. So that kind of wraps up my round 1. The Gardevoir is what it is. I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't play bad, and I knew that coming in. Round 2, I go up against Luke. Luke is playing Lost Box, or so I think, like Turbo. Game 1, I feel like I'm in a position where I've pretty much locked up the game. I can't really lose. And at this point, like 30 minutes on the clock are gone too, so I'm feeling like, wow, okay, I'm going to win this game against Lost Box. Feel pretty good. I see a Drapion. I've seen like, oh, not a Drapion. I've probably seen like, I've seen a lot of like tools from Luke that are gone that have no indication that it's Kyogre. And all of a sudden on the very last turn, because I prized my 4th Iono, I couldn't go get it with the Seal Stone. So I had to like, stop, and I missed Palpad, so I did put Palpad with a Seal Stone and put it back in. Luke ends up going through his whole deck, getting to a Kyogre, horning back something onto my bench, and winning the game that way. And I was like, oh, that's unexpected, okay. And so game 2, I'm actually in a position to go ahead and take it as well, but a similar situation occurs where my 4th Iono is once again prized, and I can't capitalize on his like 12 card hand. Palpad's already been used, so I actually don't have any Iono left, and I have to basically just hope that Luke can't Kyogre my board on that final turn. But with like a 12 card hand and like 9 cards in deck, it was pretty much an inevitability that that situation would occur, and I start the tournament 0-2. Starting 0-2 at the World Championships means that I was eliminated as soon as humanly possible from the event, from top 8 and championship contention. An absolutely horrible feeling. Definitely felt like a punch to my gut. A lot of emotions, but I did know that potentially I could keep playing and get prizing, and potentially X2s could make it, so I said, sure, let's just put my game face on and get in there. Round 3, I go up against Mike Fouché, who's a close friend and kind of a local to me, I guess. Game 1, Mike ends up taking it because I just can't beat through his Lost Tinas, Paths, and Ionos, and Roxannes, and whatever. Like, I just can't draw out of it properly. Game 2 is in 3. Mike, however, just draws pretty poorly, and I draw pretty well, establishing my board both times, dealing with Mike's Abyss Seeking pretty early. Like, he Abyss Seekings, I take the 2 prizes, or he would Abyss Seeking, and I would get the Cresselia Snipe on, like, 2 Comfies, dodging the Roxanne until I have to go to 2, and then kind of playing the game from there. So I end up winning that set. Round 4, I go up against Aaron Friedman, who's playing Tina as well. Game 1, I have to like a Mirage Step turn 2 going second, which already puts me in a massive disadvantage, I feel like. But I somehow end up putting Aaron in a position where I can Iono him to 1 and like snipe, or like Iono him to 1 and just like attack with Guardy EX into like a Sableye, which Aaron doesn't have a response to. And I actually win the game off the back of like a little bit of luck in game 1. And then game 2, I open like Ralt's Pass. And game 3, I basically open effectively Ralt's Pass. And I find myself somehow losing a set that I think I should have won if I was won, or even tied if there was even a couple of minutes. Or I was able to play the game. So a little bit disheartening. That's how my tournament completely ends 1-3. 5-3 does get prizing, so I figured I'd keep playing it out until I'm mathematically eliminated. But it just sucked to have that position happen to me. Round 5, I go up against a Japanese player playing Single Strike Lugia. Both games, the matchup is like determined by the fact that I have Sinnoh and my opponent doesn't really have an answer into Sinnoh. And both games it was just like me getting into Gardevoir, establishing my board pretty normally. Like, I don't think I did anything special in either game. I just set up I got to my cards, I just did my attacks, and I'd be able to get 2-0. And then the penultimate round at 2-3, where I lose up against a good friend Fabian, and Fabian was playing something called Chan Pao Gardevoir, where the whole point of the deck is to get down to Kyogre at the end of the game, and just like Aqua Storm, and use Chan Pao and Palkia to do a ton of damage, and use Shining Arcana at the end of the game to just accelerate water energies. Both games, I feel like there was one card that I needed to stabilize the game, and it was the prize card that I didn't have. Like in game 1, I believe I needed the Zacian to just pretty much win the game, and Fabian like basically like went in with a Chan Pao and said like, if you have a Zacian, you win the game. And unfortunately, Zacian was my 6th and final prize, which really sucked for me because if I had drawn it on the turn before when I knocked out his attacker or his I think I knocked out a Chan Pao or something the turn before, I just win the game. And then game 2, it was a Palpad to put back 4th Iono. Or no, it was Palpad to put back my boss, because I already used 2 bosses, to boss up Palkia and end the game with a 2-prize knockout. But because I missed a way to get to the boss, his orders, Fabian was able to just have that Kyogre turn. So both games I lost by half a turn, I would say. But it was a little disheartening because like Fabian had like a pretty perfect setup, killing my Manaphy and lost zoning it both times pretty effectively, and I didn't really know how to approach the game from there. At that point, I was 2-4. There was no more prizing left for me. Yes, I could have played the last 2 rounds out, but it was a little bit of a disheartening experience. Just like a punch to the gut, like my world had come crumbling down to a degree, and I took that opportunity to just drop and watch the rest of the games because I didn't have any heart to do it anymore. That being said, it's not like I'm not motivated to keep pushing and trying again this upcoming year. I'm very excited for this upcoming season. I have a lot to prove still. It's just that Worlds is a very tough tournament for a lot of players besides a handful. So that being said, thank you as always for the support, guys, on the channel. Thank you for everything. Expect a surge in content. Please let me know in the comments below what you guys want to see, because this season is going to be a lot about focusing on content and helping you guys improve as players to achieve your World Championship invitation to Honolulu, Hawaii. And that being said, I do appreciate genuinely everyone who came up this weekend. It was one of the coolest things ever to have international players come up and tell me that they're fans and stuff. Like, that was awesome, absolutely mind-blowing. But we'll have a vlog up, we'll have a lot of stuff up. But thank you so much. I just got home yesterday, so I just got to reset and get back into the groove of things. So we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, and bye, guys.